that work. My guest today is Father John Hogg, correct? Oh, I said it right. I mess up a lot of names on here. You'd be surprised. Yeah. So Father John is coming on today. We're going to be talking about tithing, and we're going to be talking about a resource that Father John is using at his church called Tithely. So I'm very excited, and he's gathered some information. He's going to share that. Before we get into that, and before you do anything else, let's open with a prayer. If you've been following me, that you noticed probably that 3 out of 4 Thursdays I completely forget to open with a prayer. So, Father John, if you could open us with a prayer. Amen. Thank you for coming on. I have a couple of announcements before we get into our topic. The first announcement is concerning the launch of Antiochian mission trips. The Department of Missions and Evangelism, who I work for full time, we have launched mission trips to Pittsburgh for next summer. You can learn more about they're saying they can't hear. Someone said they can't hear you. Oh, hold on. There, now they should be able to hear you. Welcome to the world.
Father Matthew Howell. Hi, Father Matthew.
Yeah, it was a beautiful prayer. But I think I'm the only one that heard it. So let me make a couple of announcements. First one is that we are doing mission trips to Pittsburgh next summer. Our host facility is Neighborhood Reconciliation Project, led by Father Paul Abernathy, formerly known as Focus Pittsburgh. This is a different kind of mission trip. We're going to be splitting it. Half will be service oriented, and the other half will be training. So each morning you'll go out and do some kind of a project in the neighborhood. Then in the afternoon there'll be debriefing and training on how to be a catalyst for change in your own community. Learn more at www.james218.com. That's james218.com. The second thing I want to mention is that we have a virtual conference on parenting coming up in February. Pretty excited about that, with a list of topics we have. And we have a range of topics for if you have little kids, if you have teenagers, if you have adult children, if they're grown, whatever you have, go to orthodoxparenting.com. That's orthodoxparenting.com. There's information there, not only about the event, the virtual conference, but also parenting in general. And so this virtual conference is co-sponsored by orthodoxparenting.com and by the St. Athanasius Academy of Orthodox Theology. Those are my announcements. I have one more that we're working on, one more event for May, but I'm still finalizing the details for that, so we're going to hold off on that. As you can tell, I like to organize events. So today's topic is tithing, and more specifically, a resource called Tithely. So if you could introduce yourself first for those who don't know you, and then we'll get into our topic.
All right, sure. Yeah, so I'm Father John Hogg. I have been here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, as the priest of a mission parish called Holy Cross since May of 2012, so 7.5 years now. And so our parish started out kind of small with 25 people, but that was before I was assigned to the parish. When I was assigned to the parish, there were about maybe 60 people. And now we're at about 110. And so we recently moved to a new building because the building that we had was bought when there were 25 people, and a building that's the right size for 25 people doesn't really work when you're, pushing in the 80s and 90s and stuff. So we moved to a new building. And yeah, but sorry, this was an introduction about me. So I've been here since 2012, graduated from St. Econ's. Married to my wife, Kriya Darcy, since 2010, and we have 4 kids, including a newborn. So life is pretty busy. And last year, I started a publishing company, mostly publishing Orthodox children's books, but we'll also have some adult books as well over the coming years. But so sorry, I sort of accidentally went into
That's okay.
introducing where tithing.
I think there's two more tidbits that would be interesting to people. If you could tell us who your assistant priest is.
Oh yes, my assistant priest is my father, which is, as you can imagine, is an interesting dynamic. Although we work together really well, but he started the parish back in 2005 or six. But he's a full-time professor, and so as the parish got larger and the pastoral load got to be more, he realized that he couldn't really do both effectively, and so he talked to Metropolitan Philip. I didn't know where it was going to be assigned when I graduated from St. Tikhon's, and so he talked to the Metropolitan, and I found out that I was being assigned to my home parish, which has been wonderful, and it's a wonderful group of people. And I always say there's nowhere else I'd rather serve. It's a very great group of people.
That's a blessing. And the last thing I want to ask you about, because this is my curiosity. You live in a multilingual household. Can you tell us how many languages you speak, what those are? And I think you're trying to impart the same thing to your children.
Yes. So I always say that's always a hard question to answer, how many languages, because it depends on what level of fluency. Mm-hmm. But I would say at least 5 or 6, and as much as 10 or 11, depending on what counts as fluency. For me personally, that came about through a variety of reasons. I have 2 sisters adopted from Russia, so I started learning Russian when they came, and then I lived over there and in Ukraine for different periods of time, and then so I learned languages for a variety of different reasons. But when we started to have kids, my wife asked me if I could speak to them in a different language, because she'd read about how it was easier for kids from the start. And so I've actually pretty much never spoken to my kids in English, my own native language, pretty much ever, except for like when I'm translating a word for them. Like if I might say, secretive, значит, and then explain to them in Russian what that means or something. But so I generally speak to them in Spanish until noon and Russian afternoon. Although as we're getting more into homeschooling, and my wife is doing homeschooling in the morning, there isn't as much Spanish as there was, but they still are fairly good with it. So yeah.
We were in a lobby before the show went live, and I was listening to you talk to your children, not in English.
Yes, that was Russian. My 2-year-old, before going down for a nap, wanted to give me a kiss.
Yeah.
So
okay, well, let's get right into the topic. What is Tithely?
So Tithely is it's a website, and it's an app that you can get on your phone, where it's designed to make tithing easier for people. So people, when you download Tithely, you can pick a particular church that you want to have it set up with, and so you can find your parish on it if your parish has it set up, and then you can either give one-time gifts at any time. Like we got our tax return, and I went in and then was able to sort of give the tithe off of that, or you can also set up recurring giving. And so we were finding, as a lot of people in our parish were, that the only reason we had a checkbook anymore was to write a check on the first Sunday of every month, because pretty much nothing else did we pay for with a check anymore. And so it's a way to make sort of giving easier, given how the way that people pay for things has changed, but without being sort of intrusively electronic, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think we have a little bit more about it. Is this an app that the parishioners have on their phone, or like?
Yes.
Okay.
For the most part. You also can do it through the website, but I think most people do it on their phone.
Okay. And I think you said that you guys have seen some changes in your giving.
Yes. So as I was sort of starting to say earlier during the introduction, because our parish had gotten a lot bigger, we had to move to a bigger building. But real estate in Grand Rapids being expensive, that kind of really stretched the budget and made things a little bit kind of tight and uncomfortable for a little while. But so what we were running into was people had been very good at giving earlier on in the life of the parish, but then over time, as more people had joined and just there'd been some drifting away from tithing, and so we weren't we weren't giving at a level that was effective and that was able to maintain what we needed to do. And so we simultaneously started a bit of a push about talking about tithing, and then promoted the app. And so we've seen, so probably some of the increase in giving may have been because of talking more about tithing, but also a lot of it seems to be from the app. I was talking to my parish council president. He was saying that just in the last 4 or 5 months since we started using it, now about 60% of our giving comes in through Tithely, and the overall giving is up 30 to 40%.
Those seem like some big numbers.
Yeah, we've been very pleasantly surprised, because what we were finding in conversations with people before we started this was that there were a lot of people that wanted to give but were forgetting. And what I said to people is that it's okay for people to give. It's okay for people to give a little bit. It's not ideal, but it's okay for people to give hardly anything or nothing at all, if that's what they're choosing to do. Because the scriptures talk about God loving a cheerful giver, and so this isn't something where people have to give, or like we're not like the church isn't about money, although obviously money is needed to keep the lights on and stuff. But so we want to encourage people to tithe, but if people choose not to, that's their choice. But what we were finding was a lot of people were saying that they intended to give every month, but that if the finances weren't all that organized, that if they forgot to give, they weren't going to notice that they'd forgotten to give and make it up the next month. And so if somebody was wanting to tithe and they didn't have a way to do it in a regulated way, then we found that a lot of our tithing being low was just people being forgetful. And so people really like the idea of Tithely, where they could put in there, the first of every month, I want to give this much money. And so then it would happen automatically. And they were grateful for a way to do that where it wasn't just based on remembering. And so we've captured a lot of that, I think. Does that make sense?
It does. And an increase by 30 or 40% is a lot. I mean, that's incredible. To see that kind of a change. I'm curious how you announced this. Was this you or someone on the parish council or the president? How did the announcing go about? Because if you're going to launch a project like this, you want people to participate.
So it was announced by the parish council president, and as he sort of so he took the lead in the setting of things up, because the parish has to register with Tithely. It's not that all parishes are listed automatically. You have to register with Tithely. And so he took the lead on that, and then also in communicating it to the parish, because as a priest, I try to be careful in how I talk about such things. Like, I have no idea who gives what. Like, I deliberately have distance between me and the specifics of who gives what. And so he and I work together in terms of what our approach would be and how we should go ahead with it. But then he was the one that explained it to the parish, how to sign up, how exactly it works, and so that seemed to work well for us.
How much research did you guys do into like fees? Because obviously, if we're going to be adding something, I guess there would be a concern that with fees, are we going to lose money?
Yeah, that was something that we talked about as a parish council before actually beginning the program. We looked at different options. There are all sorts of mobile payment methods now, like Venmo and other things that I'm not the most into the newest apps and things, but the fees were low, and it is true that there are fees, but what we guessed would be the case, reading other people's experience, and what we found ourselves, is that the amount that's captured in making things easier for people, and in making it easier for people not to forget, having regularity, way more than makes up for what's lost in fees. And for Tithely in particular, they have two different fee scales. One if you're paying with a bank card, like a debit card or something like that, and one if you just link your bank account, which is a very easy process to do. And it's only a 1% fee if you link it to your bank account. So it's kind of like almost like a bill pay type thing. But in our experience, we tried doing bill pay right through people's banks, and that was complicated, didn't work. And this is easy, but losing 1% was way more than offset by people, it being more convenient for people to give, because the more convenient it is, the more people are going to remember to do it. And at the same time, people have the option when giving in tithely to check a box to cover the fees. So you could say that you want to give this amount and that you would cover that 1% fee yourself. And so some people do that and some people don't. But even what we lose in fees is we don't mind it because of the consistency.
I'm curious. I don't know how long you've been using Tithely now. I think you briefly mentioned or referenced something, but I'm curious how long you've been using it. And then the timeline, was there a big jump right away? Have you just consistently grown? Do you think you've leveled out? Like, kind of curious what this has looked like since you've launched it.
Yeah,
now that you've got 60%, you said 60% on there.
Right. And that's 60% of our giving, not necessarily 60% of all of the people.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to the parish council chairman, and he wasn't sure exactly what percentage of giving units, but he was able to see what percentage of the giving was from tithely. But yeah, so I don't remember exactly when we launched it because we were right near the end of a pregnancy, and then we had newborn, and so I don't remember the exact launch date, but it's been a few months, and so it didn't take us that long to get to 60%. But what we saw was that there have both been a few periods where the tithely participation has jumped up a lot, and then there have been sort of low trickles of people getting onto it. So when it was first announced, we had a lot of people that signed up, and then it sort of leveled off. And then as a parish, we have certain goals that we're working towards. Like even the building that we have now isn't our permanent building. We want to be here 5 to 10 years and then build a building from scratch. And so every 3 months, somebody on the parish council talks to the parish and updates them on how we're doing towards those goals. And when that happened a few months after we started using Tithely, there was another big jump of people signing up. And then there have just been random people signing up at different times. So, but it's been really good. It's been really steady overall, I'd say.
I think the point you made that I want to emphasize is that this has really made a difference for people who want to tithe and kept forgetting. And I think that's probably a common demographic in a lot of our churches, that there's a number of people who intend to give, want to give, and I got so many things in my life that I forget about that I want to do.
Yes, and that was a lot of the thinking was, I mean, like in America, a lot of people don't have monthly budgets. They don't have something with their finances where they know exactly what's going on. And so after hearing from several people, I intend to give every month, but if I don't notice that I forgot. Then I thought that we should make a distinction between people choosing not to give, which is their choice, and people that intend to give and are forgetting to and are not realizing that they're not giving. Because that seems like that's silly for the parish not to be able to work towards its goals, not to be able to work towards what we want to accomplish in the community because of absent-mindedness. If this can help. And I know there was some concern. People said that they felt that there was some spiritual benefit in physically writing a check that was lost if it just happened automatically every month. But on the whole, we thought that the benefits outweighed the costs, and people still have the ability to change it at any time. And so people, if circumstances change and people want to start giving less or more, they can adjust what their monthly tithe is at any time.
Now, I know that we have a number of different practices, both within our jurisdiction and other jurisdictions. On some churches pass an offering plate, some don't. Some put it at the back. Some feels like you have to find it. It's kind of difficult. I've been to a couple of churches where it's like I feel like they don't want my money, which I know they do want me to give. But so what's your practice, and did that change? Or I don't know if you're doing it during the service, passing a plate, or.
Well, yeah, I know there are different practices on that, like you say, and we've never felt quite right passing a plate during worship. And that's not to speak against parishes that do that. I know that there can be benefits to that, but we've always been a parish that had a plate in the back, and that's always worked for us. And so there still is a plate in the back, and people do still put money into it. But yeah, so we'll probably always just have a plate in the back that people can put money in. But one good thing about Tithely that reduces the need for that I haven't mentioned yet is Tithely even allows a church to have different categories. So like if you have a building fund, when people open up the Tithely app, they can choose just sort of general offerings where they could put money into the building fund. Or we have a benevolence fund, that we use to help out members that are in need. And sometimes people want to give directly to the benevolence fund, and so they can select that. Or when the Metropolitan puts out an appeal for seminarians or charitable relief, you can easily add something temporarily where people could give to that, and so you can segment giving as well. So we don't have to pass a plate around several times or do any of that sort of thing you see at a lot of parishes.
So it's the same thing as the memo line on the check.
Yes.
Earmarking what it's for. Yeah.
Right. And that's very easy for the person on the parish side that administers it to add something at any time and then to take it off if it was a temporary appeal.
My last question, and then I'll let you finish with whatever you think makes sense. I'm curious how much time was spent looking at competitors. This is probably not the only resource like this out there, or maybe it is the only one, and I have a hard time believing it is. But what was it about Tithely that sold you or sold the parish council, over looking at all of your different options and trying to come up with a plan?
Yeah, there definitely are a few different options out there, but what sold us on Tithely was more or less reading the experiences of people that had tried different things. And so so the person on the parish council that was looking into things read different reviews, looked at the fees, but also looked at what people's experiences were. And it seemed to be the most solid of the options that was out there. It had a track record of working well for different parishes. And, other people's experiences matter. Like I took my car into the garage this morning for brake problems, and my normal mechanic was busy. And so I read reviews of other places, and places that have bad reviews are not going to be a place that I take my car. And so the fact that there seemed to be a lot of people that had used it and where it had worked well for them as a parish and had been a good thing was helped to push us in that direction.
Okay. Well, that's all of my questions. You've been very helpful. I'm just thinking about what a blessing that your giving is up 30 to 40%. I think that's incredible for a cost of 1%.
Yeah, and that's assuming that somebody doesn't check the box to cover the fees.
Right.
Some people do, and so it's probably less than 1%.
Yeah, I can see how this could. We do have more distractions with technology than we've ever had before in society. We're dealing with this battle with many of our children and teenagers with technology. So anything we can do to help people who want to tithe, consistently do that and not feel ashamed and guilty when they've forgotten.
Yeah, and I think it's a good balance because there's a lot of technology out there, and obviously, as Orthodox, we're not wanting to bring all of that into the church. We're not going to have like lights and laser shows in church, and so we want the focus of worship to be prayer. We want worship to be prayerful and to be reverent, and we don't want there to be a lot of gadgets that distract from that.
Yeah.
And so that was something that we were concerned about, and this seems to be a good balance. You don't see people taking out their phones during liturgy because they can do it from anywhere at any time. And so we've really seen it to be a big positive effect, which is good because the parish, it's a wonderful parish, but without the financial resources to do what we want to do, it's harder for us to sort of do the work that God has given us to do. And so money isn't by any means the most important thing, but parish does need to be able to sustain itself to be able to do that work.
It's funny that you said we have to be careful about how much technology we bring in, and we're not going to do lights and laser shows. I was at a conference with a number of Protestants in the room, and they were complaining. Some of the more conservatives in the room were complaining about fog machines.
About what?
About fog machines.
Oh.
I said we've had that for like 2,000 years. They were like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Well, we burn incense the whole time."
The low tech version.
Yeah, the low tech version. And it was pretty. They laughed pretty hard when they realized, yeah, we've been smoking up the temple for a long time and offering up our prayers. So, but it was interesting how that perspective on the fog machine versus burning incense, the low tech version.
Because liturgy is, and this is something that Metropolitan Joseph has talked about a lot about. That liturgy is we're there to worship God. We're not there for entertainment. We're not there for sort of like a good show. We're there to be reverent and prayerful and worshipful of God. And so everything that we do and the whole way that we structure everything in our parishes should be built around that heart, built around the pearl of great price. And so it's important, I think, that we keep that balance, that we don't bring in things that are intrusive, but that we should keep our minds and our hearts in prayer.
It sounds like this resource that you found fits that category of it's available on the phone. It helps them remember, but it's not something they're pulling out during church and, I've got to tithe real quick.
Right.
During the anaphora.
Yes. I mean, I always feel awkward as a priest because on my phone I have an app that allows me to adjust the temperature. It's connected to the thermostat, and there have been times when the weather's changing and where I need to adjust the temperature a little bit, and I always feel awkward going in the side room and adjusting the temperature because I don't like altar boys seeing me on my phone because I don't want them to think that I'm checking my email during service or something.
You're doing a very important Twitter update.
Yes, exactly. So I think that we need to keep things like that to a minimum so that we can focus on what we're here for.
Well, I don't see any other questions in our comment section, but thank you for coming on. Do you have anything you want to say to close us out?
No, not really. Just I really think that for any people that are concerned that it could be distracting, it really isn't, and it really has been a good thing for the parish, and it still allows the person to have control over how much they want to give, so it doesn't force anybody into anything. But we made it very much voluntary. We didn't try to push it too hard or in the wrong sort of way, but just to let people know that it was a resource that was available if they wanted to. And we've seen 60% of the people, 60% of our giving rather, in just a few short months has come to that. So I think it shows that it really does. It really is a resource that I think a lot of people would enjoy being able to make use of.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on
the
show and talking with me. I was excited when I saw you, commenting about this online. I said, I want to learn more about that. So
yeah, it was really good to see you again.
Okay. Take care and God bless.
You too. Thank you.